Hello, hi, how are you all? Welcome to Meno Mondays, episode 5. And today I have a really exciting guest with us tonight. The reason why I think it was really important to bring him on is actually when we go through this, we're not going through it alone. And our partners and our family around us gets affected by how we are affected. So I just thought it'd be brilliant to bring someone on who understands everything we're talking about and just get another point of view, just how everyone else is feeling. We know how we're feeling, but it would be nice to know how someone else is feeling. So that's the idea of having this live on tonight. So without further ado, I'm not going to speak too much about him. He can introduce himself. I think that will be great and he can tell us how he got here. So I'm just going to bring him on. Good evening, Sat. How are you?
Hi, Heather. How are you? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet everybody.
I'm so glad that you could make it tonight. So just wanted to say thank you for coming on and thank you for the
Thank you
wonderful
for
work
having
that
me.
you do because I already know some of the things that you do. But it's a great pleasure to have you on here. So just wanted to say, really, just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how did you come into the space?
Right. So first off, I'm an author. I'm a best-selling author. Launched my book 3 years ago, and I am a certified menopause champion. And that's quite significant because you don't often hear that coming from a man's mouth, do you?
Mhm. No,
um,
definitely
but
not.
what I do is I specialize in two particular niches. Number one, I help women who can't
Mhm.
take HRT find their positive power from within when they feel the world is coming crashing down. And also, I support relationships going through the storm, the menopause when they're at breaking point. And that's a significant one because that's exactly what I went through. 3 years ago, I was in a loving relationship with an
Mhm.
absolutely amazing woman. She was
Mhm.
36 years old. We were together for nearly 3 years. And then within 5 weeks, we went from being so lovey dovey with each other and absolutely uplifting each other to me being completely shut out and blocked out of her social media life. She moved on and that was it. And it was so
Mhm.
sudden. And it just made me understand that there's more to what a woman goes through than meets the eye. You grow up and you hear blokes saying women are dramatic and they run women down and everything. And
Mhm.
I've seen my own sort of family in that situation where they've been run down. Women have been misunderstood a lot. And then when I sort of had this episode, it actually made me understand and appreciate women better and why they go through what they go through, why emotions can change so easily. And the scariest statistic is that relationships and divorce rates happen between the ages of
Mhm.
40 and 50, which is obviously the menopausal period. And that just
Yeah.
made it click. And I went, right. So I need to get out there and get a message from my perspective saying, do you know
Mhm.
what? This is why it happens. And this is how we need to look at it. And it made me realize that menopause actually is more healthier when it's a two-player game because we can't just sort of have women go through the journey by themselves. It's so important for the partners to come in and understand what they're going through. And I say partners, not men, because we've got to understand that partners aren't just men, they're also women in same sex relationships. And when we talk women, we don't just talk cisgender women, we talk transgender women as well, which is sort of like what I cover. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
That's really good because it is important for us to know that people understand because we're struggling to understand it ourselves. So having somebody else there knowing that we're struggling, but also understanding and knowing how to support us, I think is a vital thing that's needed in relationships. And like you say, there's a lot of divorces around people get to around 40. And people I know when I was growing up, they say "Oh, it's just an empty nester. The kids are just leaving. And that's what I thought it was. But obviously, if they're leaving and there's that emotion that your kids are living home, they're grown up, they're starting their own lives, but then you also have a lot of stuff going on with you, your internal stuff.
Oh,
The only person to take it out really on is the person that you're with in the household. So how long have you been doing this work?
I've only recently, over the past year or so, niched down to menopause because
Mhm.
originally, following on from my book I launched 3 years ago, I was a trauma, depression, anxiety coach. But even on that, when I was going to business network meetings, I was always touching menopause. And that made me realize that I'm actually very, very passionate about menopause. I'm
Mhm.
passionate about championing women. I'm
Mhm.
passionate about being a man that gets it with them, that understands what they go through, why they go through it.
Mhm.
When I had a few female clients, and even I can't believe that I've helped a woman who was postmenopausal, but who was overcome by her own traumas. She was kidnapped when she was young, and she was also traumatized by sexual abuse. And obviously trauma is very easy to come back into our lives, especially when you go through menopause. And she shut herself out from the world. And she was in a very bad way. So I said, have a few sessions with me. She had a few sessions with me. She's gone and writes the coaching program. She's gone and wrote
Mhm.
the manuscript of a book, and she's back in the social media world. I've coached a woman who was surgically to put on menopause, and her local pharmacies, every single one of them ran out of HRT.
Mm.
So you can imagine what she was like, and
Yeah.
I helped her through that. And I
Mhm.
was just amazed at what I could do. And it just made me realize that actually, you know what? I can do, but it's
Mhm.
also nice for a man to be able to get out there and understand women because
Mhm.
there isn't many men that do. And because of that, there's a lot of misjudgments about how a woman is rather than sort of taking a step back and saying, actually, there's something wrong here. I mean, if you imagine driving your car or you've got your mobile phone, the
Mhm.
minute you know something's wrong, you will instantly go out of the way and say, something's wrong here. I've got to get it
Mhm.
checked out. I've got to
Yeah.
get it. Why treat your woman any different? We've got to have that same compassionate understanding with our woman, even if we
Mhm.
don't know whether it's menopause. If we know something's not right, we have to sort of take a step back and say, something's not right. I need to find out more. I love my woman. So
Mhm.
I want to understand her and help her through this.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, I like the fact that you've had more experience with like the anxiety and the trauma side of things. Because a lot of women sometimes first time they've experienced anything that affects them mentally is maybe menopause. So having that background as well, I think really, really does help in terms of understanding and supporting. And I like the thing that you gave about, if it's a car, you would go and get it sorted. So why not do the same? And I know as a woman that we kind of look after everybody else and we forget to look after ourselves. So knowing that your partner is there to be able to look out for you and kind of say, look, this is not normal. Because I think from my experience, when I've gone through it, I didn't even realize what I was doing wasn't okay at the time. Only in hindsight can I think, oh, okay. Now that didn't really make a lot of sense, or that wasn't the most wisest of things to do. So having someone else there to support you and say, look, hold on, there's something going on here. Why don't we do something about it? I love that. I think that's just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
So you told me a little bit about how you got into this work about your girlfriend. Do you want to go a little bit more into that? How did you notice what happened?
So,
If you don't mind
I
sharing.
no, absolutely not. I think it's
Mhm.
important to share that. So, we went on an excursion to the Manchester United ground because I'm a Manchester United fan. And for our 40th birthday, she bought me tickets to see the museum, and she was actually very enthusiastic about it. When we went down, she said, "You didn't need to bring me here," and that was very unusual because she wouldn't normally say that. Everywhere I go, she would always come with me. When we was at the ground and when we was walking together, we're normally very intimate, very touchy together. But when I was taking pictures with her, she, where she'd normally put her arm around me and give me a big cuddle, she wasn't doing that. She was keeping her arm by her side. And sometimes when I was talking to her, I was ignored a bit and I was understanding what's going on and why. So that was a starting. I didn't make a big thing of it. At the time, I thought, okay, maybe she's having an off day. But gradually on that day, she got better and I went, okay. I put a post up then in late November,
Mhm.
uh, and I was joking, saying, "Do you know what? I need to up my game in the shaving department because I don't shave as often as I should." And she left a comment saying, "Why do you need to do that? You're just the most amazing guy, and I love you so much." And I thought, well, that was nice to hear.
Mhm.
And then only 3 weeks later, I put another post up with her picture on celebrating her phone upgrade, saying, "I'm so happy she's got a phone upgrade." And then she said, "Thanks, Sat, but why the hideous photo? I look a mess." And she didn't put any kiss marks. And that was the first time, not only she put a comment without kiss marks, but also her calling me by my name.
Mhm.
And it wasn't just me that sussed that, but there was a few others saying, "Something's not right here, Sat." So we had a bit of a chat. And it was a casual chat because we always found each other. We always found each other every night. And we spoke, and I was speaking to her about her book and saying, because she was aspiring to be an author as well. And I just gave her some advice. And I said, "You ideally want to start laying out your chapters now so that when it comes to it, give yourself a year, you can tweak them up." And then out of nowhere, she just exploded. She said, "Am I not good enough for you?" And I was taken aback. I was like, wow, this is a bit surreal. So I put the phone down and then I was in shock. And then I phoned her up and I just said, right, you need to be straight up with me. What is happening between us? Do we still have a future? Because normally she was very enthusiastic. And she was always passionate about the future that we had. But
Mhm.
that didn't come out. And she said, "I don't know." So at that point, I had to take a step back and I said, okay, we both need to take a step back from this because I need to figure out what's going on here.
Hmm.
It was heartbreaking, but it was the right thing we did for both of us. And that allowed me to then dig deeper into what was happening in menopause,
Hmm.
why it was happening and learn more about menopause and how it was affecting her. So as I was relaying that to her more and more, we sort of started to, it looked like we was rebuilding again. And she was understanding herself better. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a chance we could start over and start fresh. So this was 2019, and the last minute of 2019 before 2020 arrived, I told her how much I loved her, no matter what. And then 2020 came, when I was messaging her, it was just coldness, not even acknowledging my messages. And there was bluntness, and it was heartbreaking and it was shocking. So I went to a jiu-jitsu class one night and I just looked at my phone and I found myself blocked out and I was devastated. I felt like most guys would probably feel right now if they've had the same. I was devastated. I even had suicidal thoughts. But the dream of becoming an author and the fact that I've got two beautiful kids jolted me back into reality. So I just took the baton and ran and then achieved goal after goal. And then sort of that led me to grow into becoming what I'm known in LinkedIn as the menopause man, because I wanted to be one of those guys that understood women. I mean, I've come from a background where I've seen women being subordinated by men. Men see themselves as a higher power and women are subordinated. And I've seen women in my family suffer. I've seen other women suffer out there. And it broke my heart because they don't deserve that. They don't deserve to be misunderstood. But not only in families, I see them suffering at work and when they see the doctors as well, because people don't take the opportunity to understand them better. And I wanted to be that figure out there to sort of say, well, actually, women do deserve to be understood. And it's also inspire a woman to actually believe that actually, if this man can get it, then my husband can get it as well, or my partner can get it. It's
Yeah.
also inspiring a man to embrace their feminism and say, do you know what? If he can get it, then I can understand it and it can help me love my woman more.
So have you found that in your work that there's cultural differences in the understanding and the help that women out there are seeking?
Um, Absolutely. In my culture in particular, in an Asian culture, there's more focus on morals and values and how you should speak to people, how you should conduct yourself in terms of your personality. There's a great emphasis on that. And when you go out of the norm of that, when you go out of line of that, then you're seen as being rude. There's the stigma of shame attached to you, that you bring in shame to the family, the morals and values. So a lot of women in our culture, for instance, end up suffering in silence out of fear that they will be judged and ridiculed and made shamed in front of all other family members because they're going out of line. And I've spoken to people of other cultures who've experienced similarities as well. I've got a friend who lives in Africa and she's spoken about it, saying that she's seen similar experiences over there as well. And this is another big thing about me advocating menopause, because men are always seen as you've only got to do the manly things and women do the women thing. There's no sort of encouragement to embrace opposite cultures. There's no sort of encouragement as to men embracing their feminism and women embracing their masculinity. And I think that should be done more because that is one sort of big spark that allows men and women to work as a team during menopause. And that's what it's all about, teamwork,
Mhm.
because teamwork
Yeah.
makes work. Doing what I do is sending a message out there to all cultures to put your so-called values of how women should behave and stop subordinating women to secondary, accept that they're your equal, they're your partner and they deserve to be understood as much as we deserve to be understood. And they deserve that compassion. They deserve that empathy. And it's that compassion, empathy is what's going to keep your relationship shining. And in fact, it's going to be the one thing that allows you to come close together as opposed to go apart.
Yeah. And I think if you love your partner, if you've got some sort of care for your partner, it's important regardless of what else is going around you. And while I do understand about the culture and, what you need to be showing, that can be done and it can still be done, but in your own home, it'll be important that the other partner understands what you're going to, because they love you. And if they can see you're struggling, then they should be able to help. But I know it's education, isn't it? It's about teaching people
Absolutely.
how they would like to be treated if it was them, but also just understanding what someone is going through.
Yep. 100%.
Can you tell me a little bit about the kind of people who come to you or looking for your help?
So the kind of people that come to me are women, not just When I say women,
Yeah, I
I
know what
don't
you
just mean straight
mean.
women. I mean transgender women as well. Because you got to remember, there's transgender women that go through this as well in their own way. They have their HRT a lot earlier than normal women if they're transitioning to a woman, because obviously they've got no ovaries, so they're going to have their own different challenges. But women who can't take HRT or won't take HRT, because we all understand that not every woman can take HRT
Mhm.
because of underlying health issues, and also there are women out there that don't want to take HRT because it could interfere with their healthy lifestyle. It could
Mhm.
interfere with other chemicals that they're going through. It could be against their religion to take
Mhm.
chemicals in. So these women are coming to me and the world's completely falling apart. They've lost their motivation. Their anxieties are high. They are just feeling like giving up on themselves. And what I do is I give them emotional sort of HRT, mental
Mhm.
HRT sort of to pick them up and say, do you know what? Actually, you can do this. And relationships that are on the verge of breaking point, as was mine, that sadly got to that stage, relationships where fallout's happening and partners are being misjudged because they don't understand what's going on. So they come to me and say, well, actually, I'm noticing a change in my partner's behavior. And then I enlighten them that it's likely menopause. And because of menopause, this happens, that
Mhm.
happens. So this is why your wife or your partner is acting in this way. And you've got to understand that it is acceptable for us. She's trying to figure it out as much as you are as well.
Mhm.
So I help them figure it out and I help them become a team. I help them bond as a team as opposed to sort of letting menopause drive a wedge and keep them further apart. And in terms of relationships, again, I don't just cover heterosexual relationships. I cover same-sex relationships as well. And they go through their own challenges, irrespective of them being women. They won't have gone through menopause yet. So if their partner's going through menopause and they're not, then they need to understand it just as much as the men who don't understand it. At the end of the day, they're still in the zone of people who don't understand menopause because they're not gone through it.
So let's say a couple that have come to you, what do you go through with them? What do you do with them? What kind of questions do you ask? Just in case someone's thinking about it or think that actually I want to go, but I don't quite know what to say. Because I find as somebody who went through it, I knew there was something wrong, but it wasn't major enough for me to like, say this is the one thing that's upsetting me or the one thing that I'm struggling with. There was a whole lot of things that put together, is like a volcano interrupting. But when it's just the one thing, it's not that big a thing. So how do you start that conversation if somebody is thinking that there's something wrong, but they can't quite say exactly what it is?
So the first thing I ask them is, what have you been experiencing? So I take away the menopause and the perimenopause whatnot. I just focus on what physically has been happening. So I always ask them, what have you been experiencing? How have you been experiencing it? What else have you been experiencing? And I sort of get them to recycle events. When they do that, that then allows me to get to the nitty gritty and say, right, do you realize it's because of this? It's because of that. I mean, I'm talking to women, for example, about why their periods are irregular. So, uh, if I ask them what's been going on and they say, well, I've had my period and then I've not had it for a while. And I say, well, do you realize it's because your progesterone's dropped and also your testosterone could be increasing, for example? If they talk about my sexual libido's gone, I feel sore, and then I speak about vaginal trophy. And I discuss these things openly as a man. Initially, I was nervous when I was discussing it LinkedIn, but then I thought, you know what? No, because it's important for men to understand this, and women who have not gone through menopause. It's important for them to understand why. There's always a reason why. So I take them through that, and once I understand them, then they start to understand themselves. I then take them on a journey of rediscovering themselves, knowing that they can now manage the menopause. So I'll ask them, for example, what have you been feeling in your head? What's your sort of inner demons been talking to you about? What have they been saying to you? And when they say things like, I feel I'm useless, I feel like I can't do this anymore, I feel ashamed of myself, I feel I can't get out in the world, I can't talk to anybody. And I'm like, right, okay. So imagine you're speaking to your friend or your family member, or imagine you're in a social media menopause group and somebody has just come up with that same grievance as you, they're in tears. What would you say to them? And the minute they start talking, the vibe completely changes. And
Mhm.
the point I make is this is a very important thing. I lead them to actually recognize how important self compassion and self love is for menopause because no matter what it is, and you know this, it's so easy for us to put ourselves out of our way to help other people. No matter what we're feeling, we will always go out of our way to help other people. But when we realize what we've done for them, we realize that actually we've not given ourselves that same compassion. So I get them to recognize that. And then I get them to find the positivity by writing things down. So, for example, affirmations, it- what do you define yourself to be? What do you assert yourself to be? Write them on the wall. So everywhere you go, your furniture will be reminding you how amazing you are. Do you journal? What do you write about yourself? And how do you say things about yourself? And kind of getting them to change the tone of what they say to
Mhm.
themselves, self
Mhm.
talk as well. So
Yeah.
I go along those lines, and then I go into detail, other details such as what's your most inspiring film? Why is it your most inspiring film?
Mm,
Who's your favorite superhero? How does that person inspire you? And it suddenly gets them to relate to that and then find their power
mm,
in terms of relationships. I did it. Now, what will happen is I'll have the partner and his wife or
yeah.
girlfriend, and I'll be speaking to them both. I'll be saying, right, what have you both been experiencing in terms of symptoms and in terms of how you've been reacting? And that's my opportunity to educate them both about what menopause symptoms are happening and
Mhm.
why it's happening, and make the partner aware that as much as you might not like it, it's actually okay for her to feel this way and okay for her to sort of feel the emotions, because she didn't ask for menopause, but it
Mm,
came out of nowhere. So as partners, what we've got to focus on here is being a team, being a
mm.
two player, and the importance of that and how that will help her and how helping her will help him as well, or her.
Yeah. What you said about what are you saying to yourself, I think that's really important because, well, like again, I speak for myself, is that when you are behaving in this way that you don't recognize and you might be aware of the effects of what's going on, but you talk to yourself and you're like, you go into the kitchen, for instance, and you forget what it is that you wanted, and all the people around you keep telling you, like my kids keep saying, you've forgotten that. You say that you've forgotten that already. And then you start talking to yourself and start saying, I'm the stupid person. But just because you're forgetting and you're forgetting because of menopause does not make you stupid. I remember one of the incidences I had was when I was in a meeting and I just couldn't remember what I wanted to say. I'd started talking and it was just like a complete blank. And I felt so embarrassed. And then after that, I just kept saying, you're so stupid. How could you not have remembered that? But it just completely went out of my head. So that self talk, it's important when you say we need to realize what we're saying to ourselves. So having positive affirmation and telling yourself that you're still that same person. Just because little things are happening does not change you from intrinsically who you are. It's just you may be forgetting things, you may be just a little irritable here and there. But I think it's when we have that person to remind us that despite what's going on. We're
Mhm.
still that person deep down. We've not really changed. We may have changed the way we react to things, but sometimes when you get told as well, that's what you're doing. You do recognize it in yourself and try and stop yourself or try and find a way to cope with it. So I really do like that idea. And I always also tell people just talk, the way you talk to yourself is really important. And we do tend to not say very positive things about ourselves generally anyway, but I think it's worse when it comes to this particular period in our lives.
Absolutely.
So, what are the most common questions that come up in your line of work?
Well, one of the obvious ones is what's happening to me,
Yeah.
or what's happening to us if it's the case of relationships.
Mhm.
So that's when I sort of speak to them about the symptoms. And another thing is, surely it can't be because I'm too young. We're talking women that are 35 or 36. I said,
Mhm.
well, my plan was 36 when she had it, and you can get it as and when. I'm losing my youth very, very quickly, aren't I? Well, no, you're not. I always kind of get them to change that to say, well, is it more that you're losing your youth, or is it more that you're retaining wisdom more earlier in your life? You got to change that.
Yeah.
We've had other scary ones, like when I get up in the morning because of the heart palpitations, am I getting dementia? Because of the brain fog or the forgetfulness. And it's important for me to allow those fears and say, well, actually, no, you're not. It's just a
Mhm.
natural process that you're going through in your life. I've even had some fear that they've got COVID. And that's allowed me to break it down more for them and tell them this is what it is and this is why it is happening. I've even had scary ones like, is my husband going to leave me? Are my friends going to fall out? Am I going mental? Am I going mad? Have I got ADHD? All those things like that. There's always there's been a lot of sort of like almost bordering on denial because women have felt that they're a bit too young to actually be getting what they're getting.
Yeah.
So they're trying to relate to something else, saying it's got to be this, it's got to be that. It can't
Mhm.
be menopause. I think the biggest thing is we've got to accept what is rather than fight against it.
Yeah. And are there any useful tools or resources out there that that you use or recommend your clients to?
I always recommend one of the biggest things is writing things down. That's a massive thing for me. When I say write things down, I'm talking about writing down your affirmations, writing down in your journal how you're feeling, writing down your to-do list. That is so important because when you forget what you're doing, you refer back to your to-do list.
Assuming you've remembered where you've put the to-do list.
Exactly, exactly. And this is why it's so important to communicate to your partners as well. And the importance of sort of communicating with your family and making them aware what you're going
Mhm,
through so that they can actually say, well, it's over there or it's over
mhm,
here. Relaxation as well. I normally sort of crack a joke sometimes. So, for example, when they're speaking about themselves and they hesitate, I'm like, come on, this is sounding good. This is sounding good. Keep going. And I keep going. And when they said, I sort of joke and say, can you say that again, please? I just want to look. So
uh-huh.
they say it again,
Yeah.
and it just cracks a joke. And I said, sometimes you got to see the funny side of things. So if you've forgotten something,
Mhm.
try and see the funny side of things. I'm a big fan of video games. I've been playing video games since 4. And funnily enough, I've used Mortal Kombat as an analogy for menopause, and it's
Mhm.
really worked. And when one woman was speaking to me about hot flushes, she was saying, "I'm starting to feel like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. He's a yellow ninja,
Mhm.
he was born from fire." And then time, I feel like Sub Zero, who's the cold ninja, he's got the spell of cold. So instead of saying, "Oh, I'm sweating," I'm like, I can pull a spear out and pull him again over here, or I can fire a nice blast. And they were joking about these things.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I was encouraging them to do that. Things like, for example, irregular periods. And I was like, so how are you feeling? She said, I'm feeling crampy, but all I needed to say was but. And she goes, oh, I'm going to feel sorry for the husband when he realizes they've got an avalanche coming. But the whole point of it is to get them to see the funny side of things rather
Mhm.
than see the serious side of things.
Yeah.
But a big thing is writing things down, especially with affirmations. Stick them everywhere. So stick them where you regularly go. So in your mirror when you're putting your makeup on, or where you're washing your face, and your kettle when you're boiling your coffee, in your cupboards, which
Mhm.
sort of tells you that you're amazing. Because literally, what's happening is your furniture is bigging you up. Your furniture is telling you how amazing is that. Now, you imagine your furniture talking to you. It's insane.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. You see the funny side of it now. So that's exactly what I get them to do. It's just a very, very creative. And another really clever one is, how we're walking, we only see our own faces in the mirror, but when we're walking, we can't see our own face, can we? So I always say to them, which celebrity face or which superhero face would you imagine yourself having when you're walking, bearing in mind you can't see yourself? And some of them say some crazy things. I think one of them said Taylor Swift. Another one said I would be Galadriel from Lord of the Rings. Uh, but little sort of creative things like that really do help them.
Well, that's fantastic. So what do you feel is the most important thing for a man to know about menopause, if anything?
That it's acceptable for a woman to feel how she needs to feel. I think that's the biggest thing they need to understand. It's okay to not be okay. That's the biggest thing they need to understand and accept. It's easy to prejudge the situation initially for a few times. Yes, you can, but then you've got to take a step back and say, well, hold on a minute, something's not right here. Now, if she's out of character and she's unusually going out with her emotions or shouting, there's got to be a reason why. And you've got to
Mhm.
understand that. And, you know, no matter what, you've always got to be compassionate and say, are you okay? Can we talk about it? Whatever happens, you cannot stop being your loving self. But once you know that something's not right, get out there and understand what's going on. Why people not like me are here, understand what is going on in a woman's body so that you can be compassionate, you can be understanding, because it is as important for a partner to know what a woman's going through as it is for the woman herself.
Yeah.
Because, and interestingly, and I'm going to go video game on this again, I was playing a game called Sniper Elite, which is basically a long distance shooting game. And one of the levels I was doing, I was shooting from the building to clear the path for the doctor to actually get to his destination. And I was thinking about it, I was thinking it's similar in menopause because when both the partner and the woman understand menopause, there's got to be things that the man is aware of that the woman can't see. And so while she's combating her demons close combat, he
Mhm.
can see things from a distance. But it's almost as if he's sniping them at the distance to help her, to make her aware, to make her battle easier. So it's important that men and women who have gone through it are
Mhm.
aware of it. They have that knowledge to help the woman. But the biggest thing, the most important thing is it's okay for a woman going through menopause to not be okay. It's
Yeah.
okay for her. If she needs her time for herself, she needs it. If she needs a bit of an outburst, she needs it, because a woman suffering in silence is almost like forcing them to self harm. Can't
Mhm.
let that if they need to let out, let it out. If anything, it's healthy for them.
Mm.
And then it's almost like an opportunity for them to reset as well. So then we can both take a step back and say, right, how can we get through this?
Yeah, yeah. I think what you just said there about having somebody telling you that this is out of character and what you're doing, because I'm a single parent. And so I didn't have that person to tell me that I was acting out of character. But just to say that friends come into that as well, because I'll be on the phone. So in this middle of the conversation, she would hear me screaming at my daughter. And my daughter is like an angel, really. She's very well behaved. And one day she said to me, "Why are you shouting at her so much?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, you're shouting at that poor girl. What has she done?" And I was like, "Well, she did whatever it is that she had done on that day." She's like, "But this is not the first day you've done that. And I've noticed that you've been shouting at her a lot when we're having this conversation." It made me stop and think, what exactly had she done that deserved me reacting on a Richter scale 10 instead of maybe one? But because she pointed that out to me, it made me stop and think, actually, what is going on here? And that was one of my turning points, is when I realized actually there's something wrong here and I need to do something about it. So I think just having people around you in your life, being able to be open enough to explain to, or just tell you that actually that's a little bit out of character for you or what's going on.
You know, it's funny you say that, because I've recently had a conversation with a friend about this. I know she's friends in the past as well.
Mhm.
And obviously, you try and make it sound as if it's not patronizing. So I kind of speak to them calmly, and I would say, I've noticed over the past sort of month, you've done X, Y, and Z. It's not like you. I'm just concerned. Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do? And yeah, as you're right, it's important to have that environment. Now, the big problem here is, as you know as well, sometimes menopause, for some reason, has become the M word. And when people say the M word, it comes across as if it's an offensive word. And you're always going to get a few saying, how dare you? It is.
Yeah.
But I don't see any reason why people should take it as an offensive. If anything, the people around you are like your threat sensors, in the sense that they
Mhm.
sense things
Mm.
that you can't see yourself. So it's important for them to raise that and acknowledge that. I recently said to a friend the past year, I've noticed that you've been like this and you've been like that. You've been mean at times. And I'm just concerned, is everything okay? Because it's
Mhm.
not like you. And that comes from a more empathetic way, rather than saying, you've been like this, you've been like this.
Menopausal.
Exactly. Yeah, I always say, are you okay? You're not being yourself. Is there anything I can help with? That is so important. And even if you don't know whether it's menopause or not, you see something's out of character, always approach, are you okay? I've noticed you've done this or
Mhm.
said this. It's not normally you. It's not like you, because I'm concerned. And just know that I'm here to talk about it if you need to.
Yeah.
And I think when people tell you and acknowledge to you that you've not been yourself, it's important to listen, because when you listen, that itself starts the healing process.
Yeah, true. We have to listen as well. It's not just about expecting everybody else to do stuff and we're not doing our bit. So yeah, it is important for us to listen when someone's raising concerns. That it's not attacking us. It's just talking about the situation and what's going on around at that time. And it can be easy for people around you in your life when you're going through that. Do you feel doing this work, has it affected you in any way?
No, if anything it has, it's empowered me. No, it's affected me in a positive way. It's empowered me. It's made me proud to stand alongside women. It's allowed me to embrace my femininity more and more. And the one thing I did on World Menopause Day on the 10th of October last year was I was doing my day job as a parcel man. And what I did was I went to a woman's house to get makeup done on me and get lipstick and everything done. And I was wearing a sweat vest. So I was delivering
I'm a bit
parcels.
cynical about those sweet vests. Do they really? I suppose I would have to
Oh,
try it on
yeah.
whether it's the
They
same.
did. Oh my! It was already 13 degrees, and there was times I was just sat in the car having my lunch, and I was dripping with sweat, and I was like, "Wow!"
Explain what a sweat vest is for those that don't know.
So it's like a special tight rubbery vest that really attaches close to you. It attaches tightly to your body. So what that allows it to do when you make movements, it allows you to sweat more than normal. And I was feeling it on my head. I think I was sitting down and eating lunch, and suddenly out of nowhere, the sweat just came dripping like mad. And I was like, wow, this is insane. But I was also doing a live video of it just to show
Mhm.
everybody that I'm doing this for Menopause Day to raise funds. And I managed to raise £500 for a good cause for a charity, which is amazing. But I was there with my makeup, with my lipstick and everything, and it was just insane. The whole menopause journey has allowed me to embrace my femininity. It's allowed me to understand women better. It's allowed me to empathize with both partners. It's also allowed me to recognize the equality in a different level.
So what do you enjoy the most?
Just being a beacon of light for the people that really need it. I think that for me is the biggest thing.
Mhm.
And seeing everybody as warriors, not just men, women, and women going through a journey which is overwhelming, but just empowering them to believe that actually menopause can be a positive journey of opportunity. That message, just that message alone, and making people see that is very, very powerful. That menopause can be a journey of opportunity. It doesn't have to be the, oh my God, menopause goals that you've been hesitant about, that you've been procrastinating about. Should I do this? Should I do that? Well, menopause is there saying, right, you either get up and do it, otherwise I'm going to cause trouble for you. And that's how it is. It is, though. I
Mhm.
mean, it's almost like grabbing you by the scruff and let's say you've got to make
Mhm.
those lifestyle changes now. Those people that you're wondering whether they should be in your life or out of your life, now's the time to take them out of your life because
Mhm.
that toxicity can really cause stress on your hormones. So it's empowering people to be more decisive about what they need to do in their life.
Yeah, I agree with you about the lifestyle changes because when we get to a certain age, we don't move around as much as we do.
Yeah.
So we all know that certain exercises help when you're menopausal. So it is really one of those things. You empower yourself as well to just get out there and look after yourself. Because from now on, what you do, obviously it's better if you start earlier. But if you
Yep.
don't do anything now, your quality of life in a couple of years down is going to be so bad. Whereas if you're doing something for yourself right now, it just makes it better as you go. I was going to say downhill, but that's not the word. But also, it's good to talk about menopause. Like you said, it's a dreaded M word, and everybody talks about it in a bad way. And yes, while we feel horrible, it is an opportunity for us to do other things, and there's good things that come out of it as well. Just wanted to say thank you so, so much for taking this time to join me today. And
Thank
you
you for having me.
provided such valuable insights and experiences as a menopause coach. And I just want to say as well, I really appreciate your openness and willingness to share what you've been through, what you know. But just before you go, let's say somebody needs your help. How would they find you? Get
So
some
you can find me
assistance.
through my website, satwindersagu.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Sat the Menopause Man Sagu. You can't miss me. I'm the guy that looks like a thunder god. With a lot, the idea is I'm giving you positivity. So down as Sat the Menopause Man Sagu on LinkedIn. I'm also down as Sat Winder Sagu on Facebook. And then my website, satwindersagu.com. If you need help with menopause, if you're in a relationship that's at breaking point, or if you're a woman and that is feeling the heat of menopause, you can't take HRT and it's just making you feel like your world's come crashing down, do not hesitate to contact me. I would love to talk to you. But the whole message is I'm giving you power. I'm giving you the power to find yourself and find your own positive power.
I
Um,
like that.
yeah, so it's
Mhm.
very different. I don't like being standard. I like being very, very creative. Superman
I
always
know.
turns up as Superman, doesn't he? So I want to show up as me, the authentic person. So when you look at my picture, you know that I'm giving you power. Power is going to allow you to find your power to become your own power and power through menopause.
Just to say thank you so, so much. I hope that I'll be able to keep on helping couples need you because we certainly need
Absolutely.
some help when we face things in our lives. If you guys need any help, I'm sure Seth will be more than happy to help. And it's really important to know that there's someone who's helping the men in our lives, the partners in our lives, the whoever it is that's around us. That's good because we don't live in isolation. We don't live in a vacuum. So if everybody else can get on the same boat and understand what menopause is all about, I think that will make the whole process a lot, lot easier. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Sat. It was
Thank you
lovely
for
having
having me.
you.
Brilliant.
So that was lovely, Sat, joining us this week. And I think that was really important about him talking about how partners should understand what it is that the other person's going through. And for me, I take that on board with my kids. And if they know and understand what I'm going through, then it makes life so much easier. So that brings us to the end of this episode. And next episode will be next week, Monday, the 24th of April. And in that episode, we'll be looking at midlife issues again. And this time I just thought we've talked about us women and what we go through, but I wanted to talk about men and what they're going through. So, men menopause, that while we feel this way, what are the similarities when men also go through their kind of menopause? So, that's next week. And thank you. I will see you next week. Bye for now.